Imagine that the victims we speak of are younger than you and me. Imagine that the heroes they wait for are the people we could be.
Everything he was saying, I think it hurt so bad because it's true. I mean, I started to realize in America, you wouldn't just, have an underage kid come and crash at your house. You would go and see if you could find their parents to get the backstory. But in a war zone, you just assume like these kids are telling us the truth. You see kids who are orphaned and lose their parents and don't have a place to stay all the time, so you just assume that their story is genuine.
Trish and I had been thinking about possibly working together for some time on a project. Didn't really know what would be the objective, what would be the focus, the intent, but we knew that we wanted to do something together because our two classes, her world literature course and my national issues course, have many of the same themes and a lot of the same ideas. So we thought we could probably match those together. What would be the objective? Didn't know. Talking about some of the books that Tricia and her students are reading and kind of the themes that we were going through. The idea kind of focused on the youth aspect. A lot of the books she has her students read deal with young people and their stories and how do they get through these things and ups and downs and trials and tribulations, which is good for these adults or these students that are becoming adults before us. And then I told her, well, that kind of goes pretty closely with what we're talking about with these political uprisings in the Middle East and in Northern Africa. If you look at human history, a lot of the changes in government or overthrows of empires and things usually deal with the youth. The young people are the ones who start the change or call for it. Maybe it doesn't happen, but they at least start the idea from there. We want to do a collaborative project, but where do we go? We didn't want to throw it on them and say that, well, hey, we're going to do this, because then it's not their creation. The youth aspect to bring our students and make them aware of young people in Africa or around the world, that their lives on the outside don't seem very different from us, their likes, their interests, what they listen to, what they do, what they watch. Yet the internal workings of their lives are completely different that we can't imagine. They may not be able to enact change. We, on the other hand, have the ability to enact the change. So that's where the project found its basis. So the idea was, look at this idea, and we went with child soldiers because we could team it up with a book, a memoir from a child soldier. So we decided to have our students read that, and then where do we go from there? So we read the book and then we kind of open it up to them. What do you want to do with this? They listen to two really amazing speakers. One who was a former grad of Turpin High School, talking about how this organization, doing work with child soldiers, has changed his perspectives on life and what he wants to do with his life. Another speaker is an advocate who has helped create legislation in the state of Ohio about enacting laws that make human trafficking in the grand scheme an actual punishable offense. So by hearing those words, the students then got the wheels turning. They began brainstorming ideas for a project. What do we do? Do we make T-shirts, bracelets? What's the idea? What are the things that maybe we haven't done? What do we not try? So the decision was to go with this type of flash mob idea, which has been a growing theme. They usually use it for fun or playfulness, but in this case we thought, what about a mob to make people aware? So the students began talking, what do they do? How does this work? And it morphed from being something we might do at lunch just on one day to then becoming something that we're going to span for a few days. And using the hall, using places where people can be seen but yet fulfill a role as being unseen, being invisible. So the idea was students will be the voiceless, be the invisible, be those people who are forced into prostitution, forced into indentured servitude, or are child soldiers. They're voiceless, they're invisible. So the blindfold idea was when you're very small, Usually if you cover your eyes, you feel like no one can see you. So we thought that aspect would be useful. Also, the blindfold over the mouth could be used to show that they have no voice. And that's what we've been trying to do, is raise the voice of these individuals, but now we're going to try to, how do we illustrate that they don't have a voice, and what can we do to make it louder? And the music kind of brought everything together. So as the students are in the hallway, they're motionless, their eyes are covered and their mouths are covered, they're statues, being invisible, being voiceless. The music will heighten people's awareness to something is going on, something is happening, something different that we don't usually have. And then hopefully they'll be able to notice those individuals throughout the hallway, dressed in black with the blindfolds. To notice, what's going on? Ask the question, go up to them. What's going on? I don't know. I don't feel comfortable with this. And that's the thing, either make them uncomfortable or make them raise the question. Really, we want them to raise a question in their mind, in their heart, something. What is this going on? I want to know more.
The past couple of weeks, Ms. Buck's World Lit classes and Mr. Chaney's National Issues classes have been reading A Long Way Gone, a memoir by Ishmael Bea. Ishmael was from Sierra Leone, Africa. When he was 12 years old, he saw his family shot and his village burned to the ground by rebels. At 13, he'd been forced into the government army and carried an AK-47 and ammunition that weighed more than he did.
We thought, why don't we leave them on the edge just again? So we came up with an announcement that we would read, getting them ready to think about tomorrow. You saw us in the hallways now, you cannot turn your back on us. There's no turning back. Tomorrow you're actually going to hear from us, so be ready.
The world needs people to stop ignoring these invisible children. We want the students of Turpin to send a strong message to the invisible and voiceless. We see you and we hear your cry for help.
And then the homeroom aspect was just to challenge the individual homerooms and the students to, in their classrooms, raise money. And the bracelet campaign was the idea that all the students kind of latched onto. $20 earns you a DVD and then 2 reed bracelets that are made by children or adults in Uganda, not in slave labor or anything like that. And in the DVD, there's a story of a child that is told through their words and their actions and their eyes about their life. Perhaps they were infected with HIV/AIDS from birth, from their parent, or they were a child soldier, or they lost their family because of this in their war-torn country. So by raising the money in the homeroom, you would earn the DVD, and then you would get to hear the story of the child that you helped, or how what you have done with the organization has helped change their life. So by homerooms earning that, they get the DVD, the bracelet, and it brings the entire project full circle. How something so small, just a homeroom of 20-something students, can each contribute $1. And I know we say, it's just $1, but that dollar goes towards something. The bracelet's something you can wear, but the words and the images you see don't leave you. And that's kind of what we're doing. We're using images and music and sound, things to where you can't just turn away once you've been either you've been part of it or you're not. You're allowing it to happen. So it's kind of what we wanted them to be, advocates for a change they believe in. And I think that that's something that these students have definitely accomplished.
Imagine for a moment that you weren't born here, but instead you fight in a world filled with fear. Imagine not a pencil, but a gun in your hands, not taught arithmetic, but the ways to kill a man. Imagine witnessing your family murdered, a nightmare-breaking day. Imagine becoming addicted to drugs that take the pain away. Imagine that your innocence is gone, your childhood a distant dream. Lost and alone, no one sees your tears, no one can hear you scream. Imagine that the victims we speak of are younger than you and me. Imagine that the heroes they wait for are the people we could be.